one and all. Welcome back to the Goats podcast, where we aim to find the very best in every category, from football to sex positions. And I'm your host for this afternoon, Vinny. And with me, as always, I've got Mork and Sebek, although they seem to be in the same room this time.
We are. We certainly are.
How are we doing? We had an exciting week.
We've had surgery.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, we done the reverse Siamese, so now we're attached. Can you say that? Is that allowed?
Reverse side.
I don't know if I think you're supposed to say conjoined.
We've had a reverse conjoining. Oh no, it wouldn't be reverse, would it? We've had a conjoining procedure. We've been conjoined. We were gonna go for the we were gonna do like a human centipede, but you know,
Michael bats out.
Yeah, I didn't want to be at the arse end, so we're just at the hip now.
Yeah. And, yeah.
So if I go this way, Seb will go.
Oh fucking hell, mate! That's still a bit sore, mate.
It's not actually at the hip; it's just the tips of our penises.
Your penises are just always like that way.
Yeah,
just the way you're sitting. Yeah. Like stretched as well, because you guys have got tiny cocks.
Yeah. Yeah. How you been, Vinny?
Yeah, decent. Went to Gareth Bale's golf place in Bristol. He's got like a golf and chicken wings place.
Nice.
Called, I think it's called Par 59. It's like a mini golf, but then you can also, it's like there's a bar there and they've got food. Maybe on Wednesdays it's like unlimited chicken wings, so I was just there for the chicken wings pretty much, but it was good. It was good fun.
Was Gareth there?
No, he wasn't, unfortunately. I was very disturbed by the fact his lack of presence. But there were lots of like
Why has he got a thing in Bristol?
Penis imagery. He's got one in Cardiff as well. I think it's just something he's opened up like a.
Fair enough.
But yeah.
Fair enough. Gareth Gale.
Other than that, Gareth Gale, not much to report on.
Nice. Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. Well, I'll just get into the whole advertising the podcast that you guys are listening to anyway. So if you like our podcast and want to support it, head on over to our Instagram at _goats_pods and give us a cheeky follow. Otherwise, giving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts is also a massive help. And if you've got a $5 to spare a month, you could even become a Patreon if you're that inclined.
Patreon.
I think we should just get straight into it.
Yeah.
Well, today we have another special episode, actually, where instead of finding the best of something, like the name of our show, the Goats, we're actually going to be looking at the worst of something. And that's right. We've got ourselves another Woats episode. How do we do it?
I know.
But unlike the more lighthearted worst film director we did a couple of weeks ago, we're going a bit more dark on this one. And so, without further ado, I'm a big fan of nature. Everything from watching the birds fly up above in the sky, defying gravity, to hearing the soothing sounds of waves crashing. I don't think there are many things better than some lovely nature. But despite me enjoying the soothing effects of nature on the world, it's a bit of a one-way relationship sometimes, I think, because for as much good that it brings with it, it kind of brings just as much destruction. So that's why today we're going to be looking to crown the absolute worst that nature has ever done to the world and humanity. Yes, that's right. We're going to be looking to crown the very worst natural disaster that we know of. And we've sort of decided as a rule to keep it as lighthearted as possible, to not pick anything more recent than 1900, because it can get a bit dark talking about the death statistics of the recent flooding in Pakistan or whatever.
Yeah, we won't do that. We'll just do one from like ages ago.
Yeah. It's like how you can meme on the Titanic because it happened over 100 years ago. So, like, who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
Who cares? Yeah. But anyway, who wants to go first? Have we decided that yet?
I'll go first if that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that is all right.
I think Michael wants to,
Well, you can go first. Set me up to slaughter you.
Yeah, right.
Cool.
So look, here's the thing. about natural disasters, obviously quite difficult to pull from lived experience, which is, weirdly what we do a lot on this show. If we're talking about a great sports person, you think about a sports person you watch. You don't think about some sports person you never fucking heard of. You're like, oh, I like that person for me. But obviously, natural disasters, we haven't been through many. And, we are... well, here's the thing. And obviously also we agreed not to do anything too current. The old human tragedy. So that really made things a bit more difficult. But then I realised, well, we did all live through a natural disaster of sorts, a biological phenomenon that disrupted the entire world, the pandemic, which we...
Scamdemic.
The scamdemic, yeah. Now, obviously, I'm not going to talk about the COVID pandemic because, firstly, it was way too soon, bit soon. We're not doing anything from the last 100 years. But also...
Can't do anything from yesterday.
Because in terms of numbers, it's pretty small fry. I know it really disrupted everything, but, it's not that big of a deal in terms of previous pandemics.
Yes.
And, you
in terms of mortality rates, you're saying, like fatality rates.
Yeah, in terms of mortality rates, mortality and fatality rates, it's pretty small. I mean, obviously the global impact was enormous, and it's probably the most well documented pandemic in history. And but you could argue as well that our connected nature of the world made it probably a lot less impactful than it would have been hundreds of years ago, because we all just emailed each other and said, should we not go outside? Basically, and it it was, as much as it was very bad, it wasn't that bad. Now if you're going to talk numbers, which I am, I think it's the only real way to really talk about natural disasters. I think it's a numbers game.
Sure.
And I think it's very hard to look past. Well, there is only one, in my opinion. You could talk about the Spanish flu or smallpox, but if you're talking the big boys, you've got to talk the Great Pestilence, the Great Death itself, the Great Plague, aka the bubonic plague, aka the Black Death. Now, I know we covered a lot of this at school. The Black Plague was like primary school 101, if I remember.
Yeah.
School's that thing you go to where you do the learning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I thought you
right,
just ate tables.
No, they love. It's like they do. It's one of them weird things that, I vividly remember doing it at primary school. It was like a big thing that they really. Yeah, you know how they do weird Tudor, not Tudor, but they love the Middle Ages at primary school.
I can't remember anything from primary school apart from the riot.
Okay, well, we'll dig on to that. I think another that feels like a story. There was a riot.
Yeah, the riot and the kid who punched the head teacher. This kid punched the head teacher, and then we were like, it was a really nice day. So after lunchtime, they were like, right, get back in for last lesson. And I don't remember really how it started, but I just remember all of a sudden we're all like, nah, fuck that. And so we just sat on the field, everybody, the whole school just going, we will not be moved. We will not be moved.
Your voices were probably not that booming, considering the oldest age would have been 10.
Yeah, I was in year 4 or 5. And
what? So there was a prison riot?
Well, the teachers were just like, oh, for fuck's sake, right? Let's just let them get on with it. So they all just stood in a line at the front, it's only an hour until they go home anyway. Let's just leave them to it. And we just sat
not paid enough of this shit.
Come on in. And then the school proper bell went, and we all just all right, see you tomorrow. And just got up and went to our parents. I don't even think my parents probably don't even know it ever even happened, because it was just we just walked off and that was it. We just came back the next day. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it is cool.
Yeah, that is.
That was primary school.
Fucking hell. Wow. I don't even know how we got onto that. But yes.
What happened at St. Peter's?
Yeah. Excuse me.
Oh, we did go to St. Peter's. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, look, I know we covered it in school, or at least some of us did. But I think until you look into it as an adult, until you look into it with context, it's quite difficult to it's just one of them silly little things you think about talking about primary school. We're like, oh, fucking plague pits and that. But you don't really think about what that actually means until you look into it as an adult. And I think before we go any further, what we need is context. Because in order to understand why things fucked everyone up so hard, you have to understand the context of the time. And obviously, this is the 14th century, the 1300s. And people were living in a way that people had never really lived before. I mean, obviously, it's a slow process getting to this point, and I'm sure there were big cities and stuff like that before the 1300s. But by the 1300s, what used to be nations made up of small towns and villages now had enormous cities. You know, Paris, London, Rome were these, and it's difficult because they are cities by our modern standards. You know, you can talk about a city in 3000 BC, but the population in 3000 BC was like less than 100 million. So, you know, a city of 3,000 would have felt like an absolute metropolis.
Massive,
But we're talking about cities now that had millions of people in them, and people
really?
just basically
Millions?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe London and Paris were like tickling the million mark in terms of population. Which again is when things start to get really, you know, interesting, because you have to imagine that this is at a time when the global population was at 400 million. So you have 1/400th of the global population living in a single city. And that causes some problems. On top of that, our understanding of hygiene wasn't really where it should be. The general public didn't really have the capacity to wash themselves or their clothes. And, you know, there was literal shit running down the street. You know, people just used to chuck their shit out the window.
So that was before like sewage systems then, right?
Yeah. We're talking like we wanted a big city, but we didn't know how to do it. And obviously you can say like, oh, you know, the Romans, they did things differently and blah, blah, blah. But as a population, as a global population, we weren't really where we needed to be to have this many people living in such a confined space. Some people would argue we still don't.
A bit too much, too fast kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
in the background of all this, an ancient foe had been lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike. Yersinia pestis, or the plague, had been causing small pockets of havoc as far back as 3,300 BCE, and there's evidence to suggest it may have gone back even further than that. That's just like concrete evidence that it was happening about then.
Yeah.
And, you know, throughout ancient Europe, ancient China, there'd been these small epidemics of disease. And it's one of those funny things where, like, history's all about context. And I think in the last, you know, even in the last 10 years, I was reading today that there's been a lot of people looking back in history and looking about, you know, these tales of, oh, we turned up at this village and everyone was dead. And back then that would have been like a magical event. But they're now looking back at it with the gaze of what was going on. And there's a lot of these kind of weird population drops throughout history that they're now attributing to plague that previously they didn't really have. So there's a thing called the Nordic decline. No, not the Nordic. What's it called? The Neolithic decline. So there was a massive population drop in the early Bronze Age period, which previously they didn't really know what that was about. But they're now looking back and they think that probably was the plague that caused that.
Is this to do with the is this to do with the collapse of is it the Bronze Age collapse, right, where people don't exactly know what caused it? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, the early Bronze Age, there was like a bit of a weird collapse, and no one really knows exactly why, but they now think that probably was bubonic plague, or there was elements of it involved, because obviously if a large, again, this is something that I didn't really realize until I looked into it as an adult, but when you lose 50% of your population, it's more devastating than just not having those people in the population. You struggle with agriculture, like jobs, and you struggle to maintain the system that was previously a very well balanced system. You know, if the person who does and again, it comes down to that thing of like moving from like hunter gathering into like farming. You then become reliant on certain people to do certain jobs, and if those people die, then things start to collapse pretty quickly. If the cow guy dies and the wheat guy dies, and no one else knows how to do the cow and the wheat, and then the fucking
you can't just Google it. Like you can't just look it up.
Yeah, exactly. The fucking axe guy dies, so now you don't have any way to make it. Like, do you know what I mean? And suddenly things start to really fall apart.
There's a lot, like a lot of just passing on this information through showing people, like, you know, word of mouth rather than writing it down in these documents. Like, this is how you chop wood or farm a cow or something.
And then if all those people die, the knock-on effect is
we have to learn all over again.
You have to relearn, and it's a really big problem. Anyway, so this has been going on. And there's been these, you know, throughout history, there's just these like weird tribes dying and villages dying, small towns dying. But it would take another 4,000 years for this thing to kind of go biological Super Saiyan, which is what it did. The exact Super Saiyan?
Super Saiyan.
Super Saiyan.
Super Saiyan.
I thought it was Super Saiyan.
Super Saiyan, mate.
Super Saiyan.
I'm going Super Saiyan.
I just thought that was an accent.
No.
It's Saiyan or something.
Yeah, Saiyan.
Oh, interesting.
What are you saying?
Yeah. What are you saying, fam? What are you
saying,
Super Saiyan?
Look, it would take a minute for it to do whatever the fuck that is. And, you know, it's very hotly debated exactly where this thing kicked off, because it had been knocking around for so long that there was pockets of it all over the place. But some scholars think it was in China. Others think China. Others think Central Asia. Some think the Middle East. Some think Europe. But basically, it really brewed. It started to properly kick off in the Middle East and China, and then you know, armies had been taken down by it. Asian cities had fallen, and it was a bit like the recent pandemic in the sense that although it had been in Europe, people were kind of ignoring it. And it wasn't until it crossed the Black Sea from Turkey that things really started to kick off. So, and by kick off, this is obviously, again, a very European way of looking at things. But in 1347, it arrived, and it really did. It's not a slow burn by any stretch of the imagination. Historical reports show how quickly the Black Death started to burn through the population. Everyone from politicians' sons to like the poor were just falling fucking left, right, and center to this unbelievable disease. And symptoms included fever, fatigue, shivering, vomiting, headaches, giddiness, intolerance to light, which always really freaks me out, sleeplessness, and delirium, and of course, what is now like what we all remember from school, these swollen lymph nodes, these big boils, these big buboes, which is why it gets the name the bubonic Craig. Bubonic Craig.
The bubonic Craig.
Where is Craig? Yeah, Craig in a while.
Where is Craig? Yeah, where is Craig? Maybe he got the bubonic Craig.
The bubonic plague. That's where it gets the term the bubonic plague.
Yeah. I thought the main symptom was death.
Well, that is the final symptom.
Right, yeah.
That's how you know you really got it. Yeah. I think I might have got the bubonic plague. If he's dead, he's definitely got it.
Yeah.
And then also this like really famous, like the blackening of the lips and the fingers and the feet. And that's why, you know, it becomes the Black Death.
Right, okay.
But it's all well and good saying, oh, I just fucked everyone up. But why? Yeah. Well, obviously, we've already spoken about some of the context. And again, it's one of these really interesting things where despite it being such an enormous moment in human history, it's still very hotly debated exactly what happened. I think when we were at school, it was the big new word on the street was the fleas. Because when my dad was at school, it was the rats. And then when I was at school, they were like, no, it probably wasn't the rats. It was the fleas on the rats that did it.
I think I've heard both, yeah.
I thought it was the rats, yeah, or people throwing shit out the window.
Well, the truth is, and the kind of historical word on the street now is probably just a bit of everything.
Right,
you know,
right. Yeah.
Like
a lot of things could carry it.
The rats and the fleas were definitely instrumental in bringing it all over, but at the same time, I think it's that classic thing of not wanting to put the emphasis on humanity. Like the truth is, there probably were people traveling from Turkey to Europe, mainland Europe, with bubonic plague, and that will spread it like fucking wildfire. And human contact is. The truth is like it doesn't matter why that contact, like it could be an aerosol, it could be because a flea transferred, blah blah blah. But the truth is, it was dense population and human contact that caused it to accelerate through the population.
For
as
sure,
it did. And effectively, people were just unclean, uneducated, and it just became completely unstoppable. And look, we all know what happened. We all did the school stuff, the plague pits, fucking more people dying than they could literally keep tabs on, just having to dig massive holes in the ground because they don't... What's that?
Did they?
You don't know that?
I didn't go to school, remember?
Mate, it was so bad that they couldn't do graves. They just had to dig a big hole and chuck everyone in it.
Oh, shit. I remember that,
mass graves.
Guy walking around with a bell, like, bring out your dead. Is that a real thing?
That is a thing, but that again was part of the problem. It's like, people were just, like, chucking dead bodies onto the street. It was mayhem.
Oh, yeah, that would make... normal, yeah.
Yeah. And so, it was.
Sorry.
Like, someone died, you just chucked them out the front.
That's
and the
crazy.
Yeah, like, so many people were dying. It was just like, yeah.
It's like bin day, but you just like wheel out dead people.
Yeah, you just chuck them out the front and be like, oh, someone will take Gary in the morning.
Wow.
And that's how, and it was so many people, like, again, and that's how you got to imagine, like, what the state of the population in that moment, for it to be a point where people were so afraid that they would chuck their loved ones out onto the street and not know where they were going. Like, you couldn't know what plague pit they were going to or where they'd be buried. People were so scared, they were just like, just get away.
That's mad. Like, I always think people were so much more hardcore back then.
Yeah.
Like, that, like, mental trauma, were they just not, is it because we don't know, but were they just not traumatized?
They probably were. I mean,
yeeting out their love. Fuck it, there you go. If I saw a dead body in my house, I'd be like, you know what I mean? I wouldn't just lob them outside and be like, yo, what's up? Oh, there's another one. But people like seeing all this death and shit.
Just chucking them out. And then, and also you've got to imagine then, like, people then had to work taking those bodies to the plague pits, and those guys would die, and it was just a whole...
And then you get someone else to replace the plague guy.
And you had those plague doctors, right? The guys who go around, like, diagnosing people with the plague, and when they, like, cross off the doors of, like, this house has the plague, do not enter. Like, you just have to quarantine, do not leave as well. And
exactly.
I remember as a kid, I remember watching a documentary on the plague and being terrified by the plague doctors because they wore those like big masks with like the mosquito mask, and they had like the spices or whatever and the herbs that like apparently in those days they thought would purify like the air. Because wasn't it like they thought for ages it was bad air. What's the name of it? It's malaria is bad air, isn't it?
But there's a term for it. Like, before they wrapped their head around like germ theory, they thought that like there was like
it was bad air, it was like cursed air or something. So if you smell something nice, it would like help prevent you from getting the plague. Obviously, that's all bollocks now. We all know that. But what they did do was good. Is obviously not, because didn't they wear like gloves and like actual almost prehistoric, not so prehistoric, but like before germ theory, like or quarantine, like they would wear like gloves and stuff. They wouldn't actually
basically
PPE before they knew that this is definitely what you should do. They sort of were like, let's try not to touch them because maybe it's bad.
Exactly. Well, this is the thing. So obviously that was all fucking terrible, but again, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around how bad it is. Like, you're just thinking about it's like the olden days. Some bloke's walking around in a funny mask, he's running across the door, chucking some bodies in a big hole, whatever. Well, like, just everyone get a Google up and just Google like plague pits and then just type in whatever town or city you're living in, and it's fucking unbelievable.
What, there's some in Fenton?
Yeah. There'll be a plague pit in Fenton. Maybe not. There'll be a plague pit in Honiton and one in Uthry.
And what? It'll just be, they'll show where it is on the map.
Yeah. They'll just like Exeter is fucking covered in them. Like, absolutely covered.
Whoa.
There's one at the bottom of my mum's house in like the middle of nowhere. The reason, this is actually true, so my mum lives in what used to be the old village. And then everyone died and they built a big plague pit and everyone just moved like a couple 100 meters up the road. And that's where the new village is. Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable.
Oh, right. So your house could be built on like an old plague pit.
There is a plague pit at the bottom of the field, yeah.
So there could just be all loads of plague people.
Yeah, well, there is. There'll be, like...
That's gross.
I mean, but again, because it was like a small village, it'll be like, 30 people. But
still,
it's a lot, yeah.
That's crazy.
But the plague pits in like Exeter and London were like thousands.
That's what I mean. That's mental.
Yeah, there's just a big hole in Exeter, in like several big holes in Exeter, just full.
But they could have just built over that. It might be like under Devon.
Yeah, it will be, yeah. But it's a big problem because that people are constantly, because again, bubonic plague lives quite a long time.
Right.
So
Yeah, I was about to ask, is it dead in those pits?
Probably, but it's not great.
So if they see like a little field and they're like, yeah, we want to build up some houses, and they start digging down and they're like, oh shit, look.
Yeah, no, genuinely.
It's like a plague pit. They've got to send in the
that's why
them
all
guys
these
from Monsters Inc. and be like, check it out.
That's why all the maps are like publicly available. I genuinely have a family friend who put his foot through a plague grave. He's an archaeologist. He's a local archaeologist.
Oh man!
He's called Steve. He's an absolute legend.
Hi, Steve.
And he was helping. Do you remember when they were doing at the Exeter Cathedral? They excavated it to do the Roman baths, to show everyone the Roman baths that were at the Exeter Cathedral.
Yeah.
They were doing
Roman
that.
baths there? Shit.
Yeah, there's a whole Roman bars out the front of Exeter Cathedral.
Learning all the new stuff about the city I grew up in.
Yeah. There's a plague pit underneath the Cathedral Green.
Yeah.
With 100,000 dead bodies in it.
Wow, 100,000.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great. It was really
just
bad.
underneath the grass.
The population of Exeter's like 130,000, isn't it? It's like not that much more than how many people are buried underneath the Cathedral Green. Fucking hell.
It's horrific.
You know, like when you're in college and you go and sit in the Cathedral Green, like with your mates. There's just 100,000 dead people.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Just under the... it's unbelievable. Anyway, yeah, Steve put his foot through one of them graves. He basically, he fell down a hole and then felt his foot go through some wood, and he was like, oh shit. He tells it way better than I do. He's like, oh fuck. And then he looked down, there was just a big white cross on the fucking on the coffin. He had to be like quarantined and everything. It got in the like local papers.
Jesus, man.
That's cool.
I guess anyway, it was fine then. It was all I
mean he's fine. No cross
he
on
didn't
his
have the plague.
But just to finish off, just like football, I think it gets really interesting when you start to talk stats, like when
underlying numbers. What's the expected infection rates?
That's
90 for 90 million
context. COVID killed about 3 million people population-wise right now, about 3 million total so far worldwide, in a population of about 8 to 9 billion people.
Okay.
In the 14th century, the population was around 400 million.
Right.
And it's believed that between 75 and 200 million people died of the plague.
Fucking hell, that's like half.
Yeah, so an estimated half of the European population died. Just in the city of Cairo alone, 40% of the population died in 8 months.
Jesus.
So this is like an apocalypse level event. And, that's it for me. Like, when you think about numbers, when you think about what like a natural disaster is, like an apocalypse is, I think it's difficult because often a lot of the ones that we talk about, and God, that sounds such a cunt, but we're just talking about this from like a what's the word? A theological, like an educational perspective,
right?
Like a research.
Okay.
Let's say you got a big earthquake. Yeah, that might kill a lot of people, but in one very specific area,
like 2,000 people.
Whereas this killed half of the global population. Everyone just died.
Yeah,
like everywhere. I don't know if it ever made it to North America. I think that's the only place it didn't get to
because it wasn't discovered.
It wasn't discovered yet, except by the Native Americans already living there. But it hasn't. But like European settlers and stuff. So like Asia, Africa, and Europe, all 50% ish of the population died.
Gee.
Oh, I thought it was just Europe. I didn't realize it was Africa and Asia too.
Africa and Asia got it really bad as well. Asia got it really bad, but again, it's a weird one because obviously we look at Europe history in a very European way. From what I read, I believe the situation is this: that actually, if you look at Asia as a whole, they did lose as many people as in Europe, but because the Black Plague isn't sort of said to have started yet until it hit Europe, people only really talk about the number of people who died between it's like 1347 and 1356-ish. So people talk about that time period, but fucking loads of people in Asia had died like 10 years before that.
Right.
But people just don't include that in the numbers. But as like an overall thing, I mean, it literally took, and again, this is like my final bit, is like, the impact of this, it took hundreds and hundreds of years for the global population to recover, and hundreds of years for agriculture and for like the systems to come back in place. Like the world became desolate. Like half of humanity just went away in the space of like 6 years, and it took so long for those people to come back. And I believe, and this is my final line, I believe that this is the closest thing we have in human history to an apocalypse. You know, in terms of that sheer loss of life. I know that you can find other incidents in which more people in a specific area died, as like a, you know, you might get like a literally 100% of a relatively small population die. But if you're talking about a global population, I just think 50% just gone. Thanos just overnight.
It was.
That's my pitch. The Black Death.
Although
I checked, and it is a natural disaster.
It is a natural disaster.
Did Italy get it as bad? Because obviously they had the Renaissance like 200 years later. So I don't know if would they have gotten it as bad as like the rest of Europe? Do you know? Or
I believe they did. I think basically just the whole of Europe got it. But also there's a whole, you know, it's really difficult to like really wrap your head around. But there's a lot of people talk about like the effect it had, almost in a positive way, like in a bit of a weird Thanos way of like there was less people, and people the understanding of like medicine and germ theory and biology went through the roof, because everyone was like, well, let's not fucking do that again.
Yeah, true.
So like it would have accelerated. Yeah,
although germ theory wasn't a thing until like the 19th century, I think, like the late 19th century. I mean,
it took them a while, but I think it really did kickstart a need to understand.
I'm sure,
like sanitation and just general hygiene, and people just being like, well, that was fucking horrific. Let's not do that again. And it is silly. Like you know, you hear all these stories. People like, there's that famous like Ring a Roses pocket full of posies. Like people were putting their like they were putting fucking flowers and stuff in their pockets because they kind of understood relatively. They were like, well, we're stinky, horrible people, and we're all getting the plague, but they couldn't.
It's not that they smell. It's the fact that they're unclean and they're not washing, and they're not like washing the germs, and that's kind of a byproduct of why they smell. But why they smell isn't the reason why.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but like they even then they were trying to work out again, like the big plague mask full of scent and being covered in these like basically these overalls. It's like they knew roughly what was going on, but they couldn't work out.
They had the right idea. Yeah,
and so that like you know just the sheer impact of that. The impact of that, the acceleration that had on our kind of understanding of what was going on. But again, I just think it's so difficult to imagine. You just imagine we did COVID, because it's been what? It's been 4 years of COVID-esque chat now.
Yeah, roughly.
But we've done that, and I know of, this is really dark, but I know of about 4 or 5 people who have like parents or grandparents who might have died of COVID.
Really? I don't know anybody.
No, I know a few. But
imagine half the people you know.
If half the people you know had died.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
And 1.5 of us.
Yeah,
would have died.
Yeah. There'd be at best 2 goats left.
Wow.
1.5 goats.
1.5 goats. Yeah.
What could be some deformed halfling creature by the end of it?
Yeah.
Already am.
1.25 then. Yeah, great pick. Fantastic pick. I honestly, when the mind goes to natural disaster, illness is not where I would picture it, but why not? I mean, it's not like it's man-made. It's not a man-made disaster.
Yeah, I mean, it
is natural.
It's partially, like you said, man-propagated, but, you know, that's still, I think, still definitely qualifies it for a natural disaster. And yeah, what a pick, I think. Like, that is that it must be the biggest like destruction of human lives, at least in like that Asia, Africa, Europe, continental areas.
I think
in
I
history.
did Google it. Largest drops in human.
Well, 200 million people died. How many people died in World War II?
No, but this is half of the population.
Percentage.
Yeah,
as a percentage.
Because this is something I realized when I was looking into, and we'll get into this when we do the middle bit, because I've got a little quiz for you guys. It's something that I found out was like all of like the top 20 or 30 most lethal natural disasters of all time all happened within the last 120 years or so, because there's just more population, so there's just more people to die, and so it kind of inflates the numbers and makes it look like everyone's just fucking dying left, right, and center from natural disasters when it's just because there's more people. So
but like the most powerful earthquakes in history would have happened ages and ages and ages ago, but then no one died because no one was about.
Yeah, that's the thing. But that's
now that
why
we've like conquered the globe, there's like, if there's a big earthquake, loads of people will die. Yeah,
that's why, because there's a couple in like the Wikipedia top 10 most lethal ones that are like one's from like I think 300 or 500 AD, which is like, and that's like the 6th most lethal of all time, and that's like fucking 500 AD. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, I was looking at some of those, like some earthquakes in like the Roman times that killed fucking loads of people.
Yeah, just think what like that would happen, like the effect that would happen nowadays. Yeah.
So basically, the only thing that I've just done some brief Googling, the only thing that comes close is the influenza epidemic that happened in Europe after the First World War. But obviously, that breaks the rule. The Spanish flu. That breaks the rules of the last 100 years. That was relatively close within the European population, but not as a global epidemic.
Yeah. Sure.
And also HIV, which is, but again, bit soon. That's supposed to be about 20 million, but still 20 million. We're talking 200 million people died of the plague. So
back when it was like 400 million people in Europe. Yeah,
like it's just unreal. Like,
it is unreal.
It's like, what the fuck?
That is ridiculous. But yeah, great pick, fantastic. I think it's time for the middle bit. Like I said before, we've got a nice little quiz. And this is like you said, this is a numbers game quiz. So I'm going to have both of you answer each question. You can, I don't think there's any, like, just answer whenever you want. Like, I don't think we should take it in turns.
Don't do it.
Don't do what?
Don't do that noise.
What, my buzzer noise? If I do a different buzzer
can I
noise?
just say as well,
there's no buzzer noise. There's no buzzer noise. You're disqualified if you do one buzzer noise, Mork.
So I got to Mork's today, and there was a brief period where I just had to be like, Mork, give me a sec, I just need to finish what I'm writing here. And I've never heard you make, like, it was like, I don't know what happened to you. Like, it was like you had to be quiet for like 20 minutes, and you made noises I've never heard you make before.
I don't like being quiet.
You literally at one point just went just making these like insane noises, and he's just like playing on his DS going like and I'm like, what is going on? Like, why are you doing this? Like, and he's just like, oh sorry, and then he just be like and then he's like putting the volume on his DS, like, right, are you going, like, we're just sat there, and I'm like, I just really need to concentrate, and then I hear like and like the fucking Pokemon music really loud next to me, and he's like, oh yeah, the speakers do go quite loud. I'm like, why are you doing that now?
Oh my god, it's actually a wonder it took so long for us to diagnose Mork with autism.
It's unbelievable. It's a wonder. Unreal. I've never heard anything like it.
It's just like my brain's just going, and I have to feed it. Do you know what I mean? I have to like.
Yeah.
It just doesn't stop. I've got to be like.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the best bit was the covers. He started just and again, I'm still. This is within the 20-minute span in which I said I really need to concentrate now. He then started doing beatbox, but only the wub noise covers of famous songs.
Like Wub the Wall.
Yeah, like Wub the Wall. And what's that?
Sweet Child of Wub.
Sweet Child of Wub. And what's the other one? That's a
Sweet Carol Wub.
Sweet Caroline. He's like, whoop, whoop, whoop. And he's just doing that next to me. He's just like, whoop, 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 whoop. And I'm just like, just typing away, and he's like, "That was a good one, wasn't it, Seb? That was great."
They were good. Wonder Wub was fucking great.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
This.
I don't want a third podcast in a row where it's just Mork doing wub noises. Like the last two start with you doing wub beatboxing, and I'm already bored of it.
Okay, let's go for the quiz.
Let's do this quiz. Okay, so yeah, no buzzins. Just say your answer. Closest number wins. That's how we're rolling.
Okay.
And answer whenever you want. So, First question. What is the highest recorded magnitude earthquake? And this is obviously
11.
a scale of 1 to 10. I'm going to let you answer again because it's between 1 to 10. Closest wins. And this is the decimal points we're talking. It's like something point something.
I think it's a 9.4, I think.
I'm going to go 9.8.
All right.
It's actually a 9.5. Very close, Sebek. Happened in Chile in 1960. Lasted for about 10 minutes.
Isn't that the one as well where I looked at this because again this was like within the last 100 years, but there was one that was like one of the highest magnitude earthquakes ever, and you know how like they normally happen like in the sea or somewhere. This happened like in a city, like it happened like underneath, like the epicenter of it was like in the city.
Damn.
And everything just fell down. Like it was like the whole ground shifted by like a meter left and right, and everything just fell over. Like, can you imagine?
Yeah.
No,
it's awful.
I can't. Yeah, it's crazy.
10 minutes as well. 10 fucking minutes. That's a long time.
And it had like a bunch of aftershocks, and it's just awful. Anyway.
Question 2. On average, how many people die each year due to natural disasters? And I think this doesn't actually... it's not like illnesses, because I don't think that came into it. But how many people die each year on average to natural disasters? 3,000? Globally.
2 million, I'd say.
2 million? Fucking hell, that's two very opposite ends of the spectrum. And in fact, Mork's closer, because the answer's 45,000 globally.
Oh, yeah.
2 million's way too far.
I guess I thought that like maybe the numbers would be like because obviously most years there's not one, but then there's a big one. I guess it depends what average you're
That's
using.
what I was thinking. I was thinking most years it's probably not very many, but then
you have a Haiti, and it's like that.
But again, that's only in the thousands. It's never in the millions. So I was thinking it's got to be 1,000 something.
It's really bad, but every time I think of the Haiti earthquake, I think, and again, it's really bad because it's Family Guy, but there's a bit in Family Guy where Godzilla attacks Haiti, and he gets there and he's just like, oh no, and he just like crawls back in the wall. He's like, oh,
yeah, that's pretty fucked up.
He's like, oh, this is awful.
Yeah, I got a little fact here. Historically, droughts and floods were actually the most fatal events. I think basically just due to starvation, more or less. But nowadays, most deadly tend to be earthquakes, obviously, because cities, lots of buildings in a small area.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, that's one for Mork. Don't remember which keyboard I'm using. Question 3. Between 1990 and 2019, so that's 29 years, a total of 9,924 natural disasters occurred globally. What percentage of those disasters were floods?
9,000.
Just under 10,000 natural disasters in a 30-year span. How many were floods?
8%.
8%?
I'm going to say 15%.
Sebek is closer. It's 42%. Massive.
Whoa!
Fucking hell.
Jesus Christ.
It makes sense when you think about it, because not everywhere has earthquakes or volcanoes or things like tsunamis, but almost everywhere you're going to have flooding Like, even in Fenton, there's
floods like 3 times a year.
This is what I mean. There's floods all the time, everywhere.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I was in a caravan literally about 10 miles up the road from where that Boss Castle thing happened.
Really?
Obviously, no one died in Boss Castle, because we can chat about that a bit more openly. But I do remember, and this is so bad, but I do remember just thinking, fucking hell, it's raining. Like me and my dad, it was me and my dad were down on our own, because we used to go down to caravan. And
I don't know what this Boss Castle thing is, by the way. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Basically, a small town in
where is it?
In Cornwall. It's like right by the river. It has like an estuary mouth, but it's quite small. And in it's called Boss Castle. And I think in 2000,
early 2000s.
I think it's like 2007
maybe,
6 or 7. Yeah, there was a really massive
mid.
Like, what's the word? Like an overnight huge raindrop. Like,
one giant raindrop.
Yeah, but like some enormous amount of rain dropped overnight, it just flooded this tiny town. And because this town is like built over the estuary, like everything just washed away. Like it's crazy. Like
really?
It's like it looks like something from like a proper flood that you see in like
Moses times.
Yeah, like there's like just it's like, you know, when the water stops looking like water and it's just like full of wood and like debris and there's like a car going past.
Yeah, it's just mud.
It's just that.
Yeah. Everyone was just like sat on their roofs, weren't they?
Yeah, but no one died. But they blamed it on the farmers for like ploughing down instead of across. They like all because it's way easier for a farmer to just plough downhill, but you're supposed to plough across the hillside.
Right.
But they ploughed downhill and then all the rain just went like
that big drop.
But
right.
I don't actually know if it was all their fault, but I do remember being in the caravan with my dad and we were just on the road being like, God, it is raining. It is really raining. And then we woke up the next day and they were like, yeah, fucking like Boss Castle's gone.
Oh, right.
Wow.
No one died, so it's all right.
That's crazy. No one died from that. Fucking hell. Well, anyway, question 4. Still only 1 point between the two of you. Between 2000 and 2012, natural disasters caused a total of $1.7 trillion in damage. But how many people were affected in that time span?
Oh, affected.
What, like a percentage of the population?
Not percentage of the population, just straight up number of people. How many were affected? 1 million people were affected by natural disasters. Is that what you're going for?
It's good. I'm going to say like 2 billion. You imagine there's some big incident in fucking India and another one in China.
Oh shit, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, Mork, I think you blew your load a bit too quickly there. It's 2.9 billion, which is about half the population in that time span.
Yeah, I was thinking like actually affected, like in the place, like either died or injured or whatever. But no, like just the general effect.
Is one of those funny words as well, where like, you know, quite loosey goosey.
Yeah, it could be quite loose for sure. But anyway,
damn.
Go on, Mork. You got to get this next one. The most lethal natural disaster in recorded history was the 1931 floods in China. What is the upper estimate for its death count?
20 million.
Oh, you bastard. I think it is 20 million. I remember looking at it. It begins with a 2. I think it might be 200 million. Seems like a lot.
Yeah. That's the amount of people that died of the Black Plague.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm gonna do fucking, what's it called? I'll just say
No, don't be a prick.
2 million and 1.
2 million and 1.
No. You have to pick an actual answer, not 2 million and 1.
I'll say
what do you think it is?
20 million.
I'll say 22 million.
Mort gets it with, it's actually 4 million. You guys way overshot it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
4 million people. That's a lot of people to die in a flood.
Not dozen people, but
what? Is that it? But yeah, 4 million people.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. But yeah, that's just the upper estimate. I think the lower estimate's like 1.2 million. Anyway,
generate electricity.
The score is 3-2 to Sebek. Can you bring this one back, Mork?
Yeah.
How many active volcanoes are there in the world, approximately?
21.
23.
Fuck off. Use your own brain.
I am using my own brain.
You're not.
You guys are going way off with these, by the way. It's 1900.
Oh,
fucking hell. What?
Where 90% of them are actually within the same area known as the Pacific Ocean's Ring of Fire.
Oh, yeah. It's underneath.
Yeah, underneath.
I forgot about underwater ones. Damn it.
But underwater ones don't really matter, do they?
No,
if they go off, it's just underwater, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they don't. Probably
Tsunamis.
Don't affect anyone.
Don't live in the sea.
Right, well, Sebek's won, but
yeah,
I'm just gonna say the last question anyway. See what you guys.
Okay.
Let's see what you want to see what your answers are. So, the 1958 Litua Bay mega-tsunami was the largest wave ever recorded. How big in feet was this wave?
$439.6.
139.6.
I'm going to say about 200 foot.
1,720 feet.
Oh my Fucking
That's
Crikey.
about half of a kilometer. Just think about that for a second.
Did it hit anybody?
Yeah, I think 5 people died from it, but it's like in a remote area of Alaska where like no one lives. But I think it killed like everyone who saw it. But yeah,
So there's no pictures.
it was caused from an earthquake which triggered a rock slide of about 90 million tons of just dirt, rock, and debris. And the impact of the wave was so loud it could be heard up to 50 miles away.
Damn.
I actually
there's some surfer. This is morbid, but there's some surfer out there who heard about that wave the next day and was like, "Fuck."
That would have been the wave of a lifetime.
Yeah, it would have just been there like fucking paddling out.
But there's always people talking about like every time there's a tsunami, because it doesn't get big until it hits the shore and it rises up on the shelf. There's always like people just being like, yeah, I was on my fishing boat and I was just like, whoop.
I was like, whoa, yeah.
And then you like, and then it's like, yeah,
kaboom,
massive, raises up.
There's this really interesting video I watched on YouTube that was uploaded a few months ago on this phenomenon called rogue waves.
Oh yeah.
And they're basically super fucking massive waves that until like people didn't really know they even existed until like 100 years ago, or like even 20, 30 years ago, they've only started to realize like, oh, okay, so all those reports of like of 100-foot wave were actually maybe true. And like we're starting to think like maybe that's why these people on this like remote island all just disappeared one night, and they're thinking, oh, maybe it was a rogue wave that just fucking swept over them. They're all dead. That's it.
That's mental.
That's crazy. Yeah, because there's something like in I think the late 19th century, a bunch of scientists proposed that they quote unquote proved that the biggest a wave could ever be in the sea is 30 feet. And then some guy came in and was just like, yeah, well, I saw like an 80-foot wave the other day. And everyone was like, fucking bollocks. And only like a bit more recently, they were like, okay, maybe he was actually telling the truth. Maybe that was a rogue wave.
Yeah. Well, this is what blows my mind is like, I don't think people realize like the fragility of our existence. Like it's no more obvious than like when you see those like Asian, like Pacific Island things where they live on like houses in stilts in the sea. And you think, if there was a wave that just went, whoop, like not even big, if it just was like a couple of feet high, it would annihilate their entire. Like they rely on the sea being that flat all the time, and all it would take is just one little like, whoop, like not even a big one, like the sort of thing you see at like Exmouth would literally ruin an entire town.
Yeah, true.
Like that's how fucking intense it is.
Crazy.
Yeah. Rogue waves do give me the
live on a Pacific island.
Gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, fuck that.
But cool, right, sick. Well, Sebek won the middle game. Well played, the both of you.
Thank you.
But I want to hear what Mork has to say about what he thinks is the worst natural disaster of all time. The floor is yours, Mork.
Gladly. Well, with like ancient natural disasters, like you've got your classics, right? Like you've got Pompeii, Vesuvius, various earthquakes. They're all pretty big and pretty important, but they're quite like localized. Like we were saying, they only affect like a small percentage of the people. And I wanted to think of something that had like the biggest impact on a global scale.
Yeah, like Sebek's pick, yeah.
Yeah. But so then I remembered, like, what about an ice age? Massive devastation, global changes, etc. But then I remembered that I only really like the first ice age. Ice Age 2 is all right, but once they introduced the dinosaurs, I was like, fuck that.
When the dinosaurs always in there.
Even Stifler couldn't save it.
No, Ice Age.
Ice Age 3 is dinosaurs.
Ice Age 3 is called like Under the Crust.
Yeah, they go underground and there's dinosaurs living under.
Oh yeah, I remember that one actually. Yeah.
But I was like, no, I won't pick Ice Age then. But then actually, I realized last night that Ice Age is just Snow Shrek, and that all animated movies are just Shrek. Like you've got the big fat dumb mammoth, right? Who's like the outcast, and he's on like a personal journey. And then he's got an annoying sidekick who like won't shut the fuck up, which is Sid. And like the main character just can't stand him like at first. And then you've even got like a badass cat who like tags along, who's like, you know, Puss in Boots. Right. And then at the end, they're all like best mates and that. And you're thinking, well, yeah, but what about the love story in Shrek? Well, in Ice Age 2, he meets another mammoth.
Sorry, are we still talking about the worst natural disaster of all time?
No, we're talking about Ice Age. And he meets another mammoth, doesn't he? And he doesn't think there's any more mammoths. And he's like, yo, I ain't never met another ogre before. Like, maybe we could be in love and shit. So, like, it's just Snow Shrek, basically.
Also, Ice Age 2 has got a reference to R. Kelly in it.
Can we just not bring up bad stuff, Sebek? It's always you. Every time. It's always you. Can we not bring this up again? This just turns the vibes down.
This was so wholesome about why Ice Age is Snow Shrek.
Let's just not.
Let's
just
not.
There's a
bit where the possum gets he's in a tree and they pull him down and it flings him and he's flying to the air and he goes, I believe I can fly.
Yeah, well, everyone made that joke back in those days because it was such a big song.
Exactly, I'm just saying.
Anyway, Mork, please.
Anyway.
Tell me more about the Ice Age films.
Although I'll finish, right? It's just Snow Shrek.
Snow Shrek.
Although this, like, tangent, you know, is whatever, but it was a thought process that actually did spark my brain into what my pick would be when I was on this crazy tangent. Mm-hmm. And I cracked the code, and I easily found the woke once I went down what Ice Age is actually Snow Shrek.
Okay. Interesting.
Imagine a natural disaster so great that it was a genuine extinction level event. Mm-hmm. And it wiped out not 50% like the bubonic plague, but 75% of all species and vegetation on the planet, and changed the course of our planet's history forever, including creating human history. Imagine a natural disaster so powerful that we can still see the physical impact 60 plus million years later. A natural disaster so powerful that it was the equivalent to, Vinny, guess how many atomic bombs it is equivalent to?
100.
No, 10 billion atomic bombs worth of power. Now, if
10
you
billion? That's a big number. You sure about that?
Yeah, I'm sure about that.
Wow, what the fuck?
Now, if you haven't figured out the disaster that I'm talking about, well, it is the nameless terror. And it is the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. And as far as I can tell, that the asteroid doesn't actually have a name. They've not named said asteroid. So henceforth, it will be known as the Doombringer.
Okay.
So let's set the scene, right? It's 66 million years ago.
I can picture it.
The Earth. It's a pretty cool place to live. Like, it's pretty swell, you know? There's no cities. There's no hustle and bustle. There's no Facebook. There's no TikTok. There's no stress. There's no Tories. And there's no pedos.
Okay.
It's all rainforest, lush greenery. Oh, natural, baby.
And it's been inhabited.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's actually inhabited by all. It's been inhabited by the same sick geezers for around 160 million years. So they've been living on this planet for 160 million years uninterrupted in Utopia. The Dino Crew. And obviously, all of these geezers, they didn't live like at exactly the same time. You know, there was different periods of the Dino Crew. But, you know, you've got cool dudes like fucking Triceratops, Pterodactyls, Brontosaurus, fucking Velociraptors, and you've got the proper geezer himself, like the one, the only fucking T-Rex, right? Life's good, man. Life's fucking A-okay. Now, Vinny, what if you had to be a dinosaur? What dinosaur would you be?
You did ask me this the other day, and
I did ask you this.
The only thing I just went with pterodactyl just because then I could fly, and that's the only reason.
Sure.
I'd be a licholotopus.
No.
Yeah. Anyway.
Enough of that.
But anyway, so Vinny, close your eyes. Imagine you're a pterodactyl, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're chilling. Life's good. Yeah. Your babies, they're all well fed with dino fish. You know, you've been out, you've collected all your food, you've given them all the lush food that they need and all that shit.
Regurgitate into their mouths, yeah.
Yeah, regurgitating the mouths. You're happy. You've never been happier. The missus, she put out this morning before she went out to Aldi to go shopping.
Lovely.
You're going out with the boys tonight down the Dino bar. You're buzzing. You've got that new promotion you've been wanting, and you told your boss to fucking sling one because he was being a prick.
Okay.
But then, this is still the fantasy, right?
Yeah,
then,
sure.
All of a sudden, you hear a rumble, big rumble. You check your pocket seismograph. Nope, no earthquakes are happening. So you're like, what's going on? Then, all of a sudden, the sky starts to darken. And you have a look at your watch, and you're like, it's midday. Nighttime isn't due for a while. What's going on? And then, to your horror, you see it. The Doom Bringer. You think, is that a rock? No, it's not a rock, but it's in the sky. It looks more like a fucking mountain. A falling mountain from the sky, the size of Everest. It's 6 miles in diameter, falling towards the ground. Holy shit! And then, kaboom! A blinding flash, brighter than 1,000 suns, a deafening bang bursting the eardrums of every creature. Then the shockwave impacts you. The force of 10 billion atomic bombs is like a bazillion trains hitting you all at once. And then nothingness. You are dead.
What a great fantasy.
All life is gone. But even without you in the living realm, even without you in the realm of the living, the devastation continues. Mega-tsunamis are raging across the globe, 300 feet in size, literally Godzilla-size waves. Earthquakes with a magnitude of between 9 and 11 are rumbling across the globe.
11?
Yeah, that's what it said online.
Wait, what?
I was like, why don't just write 10? But it said between 9 and 11, so I'm guessing there were like 9.6s and maybe like 10.9.
Wait, sorry.
Earthquakes.
I thought the magnitude could only go up to 10. Why is there 11?
No, I don't think it can. I thought it was just an
exponential.
It's an exponential step. But
no, so I guess it can just go forever. Yeah, sure.
It's one of those things where like the last one is like 10 times bigger than the one before it.
Yeah.
It's like it's not linear, is it?
No, yeah, it's
like a 9.7 is like a trillion times worse than like a 5.
Yeah. Well, these were like 11. So pretty bad.
Right.
25 trillion metric tons of material goes into the air in a super cloud of dust and molten rock. Because obviously the Doombringers hit the Earth, so all of the Doombringers rock is smashed out into the atmosphere, and also all of the rock that it's smashed into. It goes beyond the Earth's crust and almost into the mantle of the Earth, starts smashing out into the atmosphere. 25 trillion metric tons. And some of this material was blasted so far it left the Earth entirely and sailed into the solar system, while most of it falls back down as molten rock fire rain. So it's literally raining rocks on fire. And this rain causes, fire rock rain causes wildfires that destroy 70% of the world's vegetation. That's how much rain and shit there is. Like if you could see it from the moon, you'd literally see the cloud of shit just smashing into the Earth.
The 3 trillion bazillion trains hitting into you.
Yeah. Now, once these immediate effects have sort of passed, the dust and the particles in the atmosphere would cover the entire globe for decades. meaning that the entire Earth was dark with no sunlight reaching its surface in that time. So about 20 years, not a single ounce of sunlight hit the Earth's surface.
That's like a nuclear winter, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But over the whole globe.
It's unbelievable.
Wasn't there a volcano that caused, sorry to side note, but wasn't there like a volcano that caused a nuclear winter for like a few weeks or a few months? Was it? I think it was Krakatoa, wasn't it? Like 10 months of not seeing the sun?
What, in that area?
There's also one that happened
something like that.
Within the last like 2 centuries that they can tell because paintings of that time, the sunsets and sunrises are like way more orange because it like filters the light.
Film, yeah.
It's like a whole thing. I believe, I could be wrong, but I think it was either Van Gogh or someone of a similar period came to London during the time, and there's like some famous paintings he did of London with like these really red skies because there was just this like dust in the atmosphere.
Crazy.
You talk about who's that really famous impressionist painter?
I don't think
Picasso.
it is Van Gogh. Monet.
He's not impression. Monet, yeah.
Yeah, I think it might be Monet actually, not Van Gogh. Monet.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I could be wrong. There's someone. I remember it being someone.
Well, the dinos that live, they did paintings as well of this time, and it's just the paintings are just black.
Is that it?
Yeah. If 20 years worth of paintings, it was just black because there was no sun hitting the surface of the Earth for 20 years. It would take nearly 300,000 years before a new productive ecosystem could develop after the effects of the Doombringer's impact, and a further 10 million years for the levels of life on the planet to reach the pre-impact levels of life. So before, it took 10 million years for the population to reach what it was before the Doombringer. 10 million.
It's mad that anything survived, isn't it?
Yeah,
like
it
when
is
you
mad.
think about the fact that like didn't crocodiles they made it through, didn't they?
Well,
and chickens.
a version of crocodiles because they evolved.
But to think that their ancestor made it through that.
You know, after the dark comes the light, and although and although this impact created the most death and most devastation that this planet has ever seen, it also created everything that we have today. It started a new dawn. It erased 160 million years of dinosaurs. Their reign over this planet ceased. Had that meteor not hit, they could still be fucking here now. But that's not what happened. We had a global restart. And many of the creatures to come out on top of this impact were the mammals. They were small and able to adapt quickly to the changed environment. They could scurry around on the surface and like eat what little vegetation did survive and had started like sprouting up in the rocks and shit like that. And like crocodiles and stuff who are have that very robust skin or whatever, or can swim underneath and eat shit underneath and get back on the land because the water's probably fucking acid at this point.
The floor is lava and the water's acid.
Yeah, well, fucking basically is. You know, this would start new evolutionary chains, giving us like furry little creatures. You know, small little rodents, little rats,
like centric.
Little mork people running around.
Zigzagoon.
Yeah,
centric. Yeah.
Little rats, and eventually these would evolve into larger, bigger
giant rats.
Mammals. Giant mammoths. Giant rats like me. Hold that thought.
I'm holding the giant rat thought.
But mammoths, you know, now we've got fucking woolly mammoths.
They're
taking over as like the large, like, is it quadrupedal animals rather than brontosaurus? We've got the mammoth. And alongside these mammals, many, many millennia later, primates would evolve. And more importantly, the Homo genus. And the most successful of these would be Homo sapiens. That's right.
That's us.
Without the impact of the Doombringer destroying nearly the whole entire planet forever, there is a very, very reasonable possibility that we as a species would have never evolved to take the place of our dino buddies. So R.I.P. the dino crew. Thank you for your sacrifice.
Speaking of the dino crew, do you remember those dinosaur top trumps I had as a kid? And one of them had this one of the top trumps was this really creepy looking alien looking dinosaur that was like a humanoid dinosaur. And I looked into it, and apparently it's like what people might think it would have evolved into if it didn't die out. It's fucking creepy, man. What the fuck is this? It's an alien humanoid primate. It's fucking terrifying looking. I remember
terrifying. But that's what we would have been had this meteor not destroyed everybody else. So
maybe, probably not.
We then became the rulers of this tiny, moldy little rock floating around in the endless vacuum of space. And so,
horrible way to put the
of course this event has to be the worst natural disaster of all time. And also, it's a little bit of the GOAT natural disaster in a way, because we wouldn't necessarily be here today without the Doombringer.
Right.
But in terms of devastation, I know half the world's population died in the bubonic plague, but in terms of impact and top trumps, absolutely nothing comes close to 10 billion atomic bombs, 75% of life, all life on Earth destroyed, Godzilla waves and earthquakes over 11, fucking fire rain, no sunlight for 2 decades, 10 million years to reach pre-impact levels of life, and physical evidence that is still present millions of years later. Like that is the best top trumps card, and the Doombringer is the worst natural disaster of all time.
Can I bring up the top trumps for some reason?
I had already written top trumps in my thing.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
It's quite the top trumps card.
Do you know what I have to say? Which I think is interesting, and this is to back you really, if anything.
Okay.
Is that when you describe that cataclysmic event,
the Doom,
it sounds like biblical or like
it sounds made up. It can't.
But it sounds like our human understanding of an apocalypse, and it makes you wonder. Like, has that trickled down?
What do you mean?
Throughout our very earliest evolution, we remember.
We don't remember
in our lizard brain.
No, because we weren't there. Our lizard brain
we
don't
weren't.
remember.
But the little rats were. Do you think it's still in there somewhere?
I don't think it's still in there. I just think it is. Yeah, it does sound made up. Like when we think of biblical apocalypses and stuff, when you see shit on movies, it is hard to wrap your head around that this thing was real. Like this actually did happen. This level of devastation is possible.
Did it actually happen? Because as far as I know, people don't know if it really was a meteorite or whether it was something else, and it's just sort of like people just sort of like it's probably a meteorite.
It's really more likely than not, because the asteroid doesn't have a name, but I think it's called the Chicxulub crater, which is the crater in Mexico around the town where they found this impact. And the impact is like several hundred kilometers wide, and the impact crater is there because all of the caves have caved in around it, and you can map it geologically. So they know that crater was an impact, and they know it was 66 million years ago because of the iridium found around the crater, and iridium is very exceptionally rare on Earth, and it's highly concentrated in this thing. So it must have come from space, which means it has to be the meteor. So you're just basically adding up ones and ones until you get to that's what happened, basically.
Yeah, it's actually kind of terrifying to think that, because like you said, they reckon the meteorite was 7 or 8 miles in diameter?
6 miles.
6 miles in diameter. The fact that a 6-mile rock could wipe out 75% of the vegetation on Earth, it's actually insane. Because these rocks are coming in with such high velocities, it doesn't matter if they're only 100 meters in diameter. 100-meter rock hitting the Earth would fuck shit up. That's 100 meters. There's a lot bigger shit out there in the universe, way bigger.
Well, that's the thing. The thing that killed most of the stuff wasn't like the impact. It was the splash damage. It was all the shit, like 25 trillion metric tons of shit just going. And like, if you look at like renders and stuff of it, because you can render it quite easily, it's visible from space. Like if you were stood on the moon, you'd just see this little like poo over the Earth. And obviously the Earth's so big. Like if you saw, I don't know, a massive thing, if you saw like a huge building being destroyed or blown up from the moon, you wouldn't see it because the Earth's so big. Like you wouldn't be able to see it with your own eyes. But if you saw the Doombringer hit the Earth, you'd see like fucking coming out of the Earth. It would be like the Earth was like spouting shit from its blowhole, and it just covered the whole planet, just absolutely annihilated it.
Cool, right? Yeah, that's a pretty insane pick, I guess. Like, holy fuck!
I know. I didn't believe the 10 billion thing, but it's like 72 trillion tons of TNT, which when I kept Googling, because I was like, that doesn't make sense. I can't visualize that. I was like, how many atomic bombs is that? It's 10 billion Hiroshimas. Yeah.
But even then, 10 billion Hiroshimas is such a big number. How do you even quantify that?
And that was just like the kaboom. Like that was just, it wasn't 10 billion Hiroshimas all over the world. That was just the force of like,
in one big release of energy. Yeah, that's a really good pick as well. It left me with a pretty tough decision, I'm not gonna lie, because on the one hand you obviously have the I keep wanting to call it the Justinian plague, but that happened, I think, after
the bubonic plague.
No, it happened before the bubonic plague. I think the Justinian,
that was in like the Roman times, wasn't it?
That was Constantinople, so that was, I think it was around 500 AD. Anyway, on the one hand you have the bubonic plague wiping out 50% of the humans in like a 10-year span is just nuts. Absolutely nuts. It's like ridiculous. Like I've always seen the Black Plague being just the number one killer of like, the number one worst thing that ever happened to humanity was just the Black Death. But then on the other hand, you have the super biblical meteorite that destroyed me and my family and my good time with my mates at the bar or whatever the fuck that weird fantasy was about.
Dino Crew.
The Dino Crew, me and the Dino Boys.
I was just trying to get you into the mode of like watching that shit happening. Like you're just there chilling, happy days. All of a sudden it's like, oh nope, life's over.
I don't think I could, just because it's so fantastical and insane that like how would I even ever picture that?
Like,
that's the terrifying thought.
Bench one day, just like looking, and then you see this thing just go, and you're like, "What the fuck is that?" Boom!
I remember as a kid, because I used to be into astronomy loads, that I had this sort of fear, this existential fear that a meteorite could just come down and kill us all at like any moment, and there's not that much we could do about it if it's big enough. But
that's still true now.
Hopefully that doesn't happen. fingers crossed,
probably
lads.
Not. Yeah.
But the other side of it is, and you said it yourself, it's almost the greatest natural disaster because it was so impactful for, or not only humanity, but all the species and all the vegetation. Think about all the stuff that had to be reset, that you used to have all these plants and animals and creatures and wildlife, but now 70% of it or whatever just completely eradicated, has to start afresh. And now this is now us rat people, us rodents have a shot at world domination. So in terms of the actual question that we're discussing today, what is the worst natural disaster of all time? I'm kind of inclined to actually pick the bubonic plague, just because it's almost like, although you said, Sebek, like, we understood a bit more about, you got more into medicine after it. What good did 50% of the population dying really do? Yeah. Like, I feel like, and maybe it's just because, the meteorite that killed the dinosaurs was so long ago. It's really hard. It's impossible to truly.
Yeah, but it was worse.
it was
devastation was
the
worse.
devastation
like,
was
bubonic
worse
plague wasn't
on the
10
planet.
billion atomic bombs.
Yeah.
the devastation to humanity.
Well, humans aren't the only special thing. Dinosaurs were around for 160
Well, the thing
million
is-
years, chilling in paradise. We fucked the world up in like the last 100.
The thing is, I'm a massive speciesist. So, like, I only care about humans. Anything else can fuck off and die. You know what I'm saying?
We're the worst. We're like going to destroy the world without a meteor. The dinosaurs were just chilling in paradise for 160 million years. They'd have gone like that forever. It took the Doombringer to take them out. They wouldn't have done global warming
but I'm just thinking,
wars or any of that shit, would they?
I'm just thinking in terms of worst natural disaster.
In a way, the Doombringer bought life.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We wouldn't have this podcast if we didn't have the Doombringer.
Should have fucking said that.
So yeah, that does lead me to crown the bubonic plague as the worst natural disaster.
I can't believe that.
In
I thought
history.
I was like when I wrote 10 billion atomic bombs, I was literally laughing out loud. I was like, he's never gonna beat 10 billion atomic bombs. I was like, this is mad. Every time I got a new stat, it was like no sunlight for 20 years. I was like, tick.
I think you suffered from that thing of it's almost too big. You can't comprehend it.
Yeah.
Like it's like, when people are like, there's that whole thing where they're like, there could just be a solar flare that eviscerates our whole solar system.
Yeah.
And you're just like, well, I can't think about that. Too big. Like, there's nothing. It's outside of my control.
Could happen.
It's like crowning God as like something. Like it's too much.
Yeah.
Like it's way too much. Like, it's just like I don't fucking understand that shit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really, really good pick, but I think I don't know. It's also just because there isn't 100% confirmation this definitely happened. It's sort of like these are our best estimates of like what
It's a bit like
think.
COVID.
That's not.
No, this happened. This is real. There's evidence.
The pandemic didn't happen.
Do you reckon?
Still your head.
Some guy was giving out little masks like this will help, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah. Just imagine, like, I think it would be in a weird way. I've always keep saying this. Been saying this dual week. It would be cool to fucking see that. Wouldn't it?
Everyone dying.
Well, yeah, but it would be so instant that it, like, what are you going to do about it? At the end
Would
of
it be
the day, you
instant?
can't do nothing. What, 10 billion atomic bombs? Pretty instant.
Well,
Yeah, but that'd been one
somewhere here,
place.
but it'd take ages. Like it'd be interesting. Then you'd just be sat in the dark for 20 years.
Nah, you'd be dead by then. Fire rain.
Yeah, what would kill you first? Would it be like the earth? Like, were the earthquakes and volcanoes
Depends where you
all
are.
around the world that got triggered?
Yeah.
I think we'd be alright.
No, we wouldn't.
I
Depends.
just-
If it hit, like, Europe, we'd be fucked. So fucked.
If it hit Europe, but if it hit like Asia,
We'd probably be fucked. I think you'd have to be in, like, Antarctica.
I'd go and rob the Huel factory.
Why?
Just live in
For
the fuel.
food?
Yeah, because it's just food in it forever.
True.
And then just wait until the sunlight comes back.
For 20 years.
Just get like a DS and a Switch.
I just think it would be cool to see an apocalypse.
Yeah. I don't
It would
think
give
be
life
cool.
a little bit more meaning. Do you know what I mean?
You've talked about this before, and I think you just want to die, maybe.
No, I don't. I just have this. I have this viewpoint of like basically life's meaningless anyway, and it would kind of justify it all if there was a big apocalypse.
I know
It's
what
a
you mean.
romanticize it. I wouldn't actually.
It'd
want
be
an apocalypse,
fucked,
but it
mate.
would be
You'd
cool.
be the first to die. People who say like, "I'll go over a zombie apocalypse. I'll be shooting zombies all the time." Like, you'd be like shitting and crying like all day until you get eaten by these zombies. You're gonna be the first to die. It's gonna be
get
the
what you
actual
mean.
hard nuts who like make it out.
I think like the idea of just like going, but then I think you forget that like you'd still be stressed. You'd just be stressed about other stuff. Like
It's just about
stuff.
where you're going to get your next meal from, which is a bit more of an
isn't it?
existential stress.
But then I think it's difficult because also like there is something about going back and just like like even when you just like we know it from like cadets, like when you just
Go and
have
live
a
in the
weekend
woods.
where you're just like I'm gonna just be a bit hungry and tired and
Yeah,
just run
yeah.
around in the woods. You do feel better for
You
it.
feel a bit primitive. You're like, I'm not worrying about work.
Yeah.
I'm worrying about like a zombie coming in and like I've got to chop his head off.
I wouldn't
with a
want
sword.
zombies. I'd want like global financial collapse.
Yeah, solar flare.
Yeah, just something
Knock
where
off all
just
the
like just
technology.
a reset, and I could just go and be like, and like sometimes I think
We've gone. topic.
This is a bit existential, but sometimes I think, like, imagine if just like all of our jobs were just irrelevant, and you just had to go back to being
Sweet.
like
a carpenter. I'd fucking love that.
or like a miner.
Yeah, that'd be
and
wicked.
you wouldn't be sat there going, God, I wish I could be a podcaster, because it wouldn't be a thing.
Yeah, you wouldn't give a fuck. Vinny's like, this is hell. Vinny's like, this is the worst thing ever.
This is such a romanticization. Like, within a week, you'd be like, wait a minute, I can't just fucking browse YouTube and like fall asleep on like my sofa. Like, no, you can't do any of that shit. You have to work 20 hours in the mines all day. Fucking like, the reason we don't put people in the mines anymore is like, you're gonna die probably. Like, it's a horrible like job. Nobody wants these things.
Hey, Vinny, you don't need to worry, because you're like, you'd be doing the numbers and that. You'd be making sure that
crunching the numbers.
You'd be crunching the numbers. But me and Morg, like, that's the thing. It's fine for you, because you. Here's the thing, Vinny.
It wouldn't be fine. I'd hate it. I enjoy my nice, modern, comfy life.
This is the thing, Vinny. Right. You know how in I think it's Predator like 4, where they realise
There's no Predator 4.
Alien vs Predator 2, you mean?
Where they realise that autism's the next level of human evolution.
Oh yeah.
That's you, because you have evolved a very specific set of skills to cope with modern day life. Whereas me and Morg, we're two like Neanderthals, and we just want I just want to wake up and think about, have I eaten today? Have I had a shit today?
How many rocks can I smash with a hammer?
Me and Morg, like, you'd be there, like, you'd still be thinking about whether or not, like, who made the universe, and me and Morg could just go out for the day and see who could throw a rock further.
Yeah.
And I'd be fine with that. I'd just be like, I'd come back, tell Luce, like, oh mate, I absolutely wanged one.
Yeah.
And then he'd be saying to Jen, like, yeah, he did fucking.
He actually did wang one. He did wang one.
Yeah.
Like, and that'd be it. And then you'd come home and I'd be like, fucking yeah.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. I would fucking love that. To be fair,
this is what the Unabomber Talks Banners manifesto, what we need to return to. So I think,
does it?
Like we always seem to go back to, I think we all somehow agree with the Unabomber. And on that bombshell, I think we should probably end the show.
Yeah. All right. I won. Happy days.
Been great having the two of you on my lunchtime break, which should have ended about 30 minutes ago. Yeah, you probably got robbed, but I thought it'd be funny to pick the not as obvious answer. Anyway.
What?
Anyway, on that bombshell, it's been great having you guys. It's been great being heard on the internet, which I hope stays for the rest of my remaining life. Hopefully, I mean, sure, it doesn't fucking blow up the internet, and I can never talk to I wouldn't be able to talk to like most of my mates at that point. It would be fucking awful.
They'd all be dead if an asteroid hit. Anyway.
That sounds great. Yeah, I can't wait for that. All my mates and fucking family dead. Lovely. I could throw some rocks pretty far though.
Oh no.
Anyway,
it's just a fantasy.
Anyway, we'll see you for the next one. Can't remember what it is, but we'll see you at some point. And love you. Bye.
Peace out.
Love you. Bye.